Equity Overview 2019. Let me share my screen. Today we will start with the presentation of the results, and you guys will be the first who will see the report, who will see the 2019 overview. We will share the link after our short presentation with my colleague Vladimir from Deloitte, Ukraine. He is the partner of the TMT practice over there. And just a few words before. So we're doing this for several years in UVCA, and we're doing it together with Deloitte, who is one of our 50+ members in the association. And when we started working on the current report, it was very difficult to anticipate the outbreak that we face today, definitely. The 2020 numbers may not continue the sequence of 2019 highlights, but we think that some of the trends will give you a hint and will give you more understanding on what to expect for the market and what will happen further, because everything has its end and also bad things as well. And anyway, turbulent times are proven to be full of chances for startups to be born, hardened by like struggles and bootstrapping. And in association, we look forward to continue our work with the investment community to build a stronger Ukrainian market. So after the presentation of the results, we will shift to the panel discussion, which will be moderated by our colleague Mike Berg. He is the 40-year veteran of the United States advertising and publishing industry. He's also the business writer and podcaster, and he will interview today Yoram Wijngaarde, who is the founder and the CEO of dealroom.co, and Roman Nikitov, who will join us a bit later, who is the co-head of the venture and tech investments at ICU Ventures.
I'm actually here. Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi, Roman. I didn't see you. And he's also the supervisory board member of UVCA.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Vladimir. I am TMT practice leader at Deloitte, and we helped with the report preparation. And surprisingly, the 2019 numbers, despite the year was also turbulent for Ukraine due to elections and the very things happen in the country, it was the biggest year of investments into private equity and venture capital markets. In Ukraine, actually, during last 8 years, there was an invested 1.5 billion US dollars, and third part of this was invested during 2019. So I think that looking from the Eastern European perspective, this amount is quite an amount and demonstrate perspectives of Ukraine, because as Olga said, turbulent time will over, and we will all have a chance to, I hope, enjoy beneficial Ukraine for everyone. Olga, over to you for the details.
Thank you. So yeah, let's move on, and we have some good news from the past, and I hope from the future as well. So yeah, venture capital investments increased almost 1.5 times during the previous year, which is a good news. If we talk about the number of deals in like the total number, it was more or less the same comparing to 2018. What else is interesting, and we will talk in more details a little bit later about that, is that the number of M&A deals and also the amount of M&A deals in the industry increased significantly, and it was equal to $416 million during 2019, which is 18 times increase. In the number of deals, these are 15 M&As which had place with the companies out of Ukraine. What is also interesting is that the amount of private individuals who are believing and investing into companies founded by Ukrainians also increased, and that you can see in the number of and in the amount of angel investments, which increased in 7 times if we talk about the US dollars amount, and it was equal to 21 deals during the previous period. What is also interesting, these are not only the angels from Ukraine, but these are the private individuals from United States of America, from some of the European countries, and from countries like Kazakhstan, who are our basically like not close, but neighboring. Yeah, like we will talk about private equity a bit later. And traditionally, we distinguish top 10 deals, which were the biggest by the amount of capital received by the companies. And these are the top 10 deals that took place in Ukraine. So traditionally, the biggest amount of capital was raised by one or two companies, which you can see from the slide. And this was GitLab, and also this was one of the unicorns, one of the two unicorns for which Ukraine is a home. The new unicorn from Ukraine in 2019 was Grammarly. And in general, like, of course, we cannot compare it to global, like situation when 142 unicorns appeared in the world, but still we're on our way, like, slowly we're approaching to the country with a lot of unicorns. And one of the so-called soonicorns, which are soon to be unicorn, is People AI. We distinguish this company for its valuation, which is about $500 million in American dollars. And also this company raised 60 million last year as well. Among the other interesting trends is the growing number of exits, which is the evidence of the maturing of startup ecosystem in Ukraine. For example, in 2019, the number of exits, which are this publicly available information, is 29, comparing to the previous period, which was just 8. Moving further, as I promised, let's talk a little bit about M&A deals. This was also quite a year for M&A for the companies founded by Ukrainians in Ukraine. The volume of M&A was 460 million and equaling 15 deals. Among the brightest, we distinguish the company A Factory, which was acquired by Snap. And interestingly, as a reminder to you, prior in 2015, Snap has also acquired Ukrainian startup called Luxury for up to $150 million approximately. And actually, the founder was the same as with AI Factory. The other companies that we've distinguished in that sense are Bus4 and Captain Grows. For private equity, which equaled almost $14 million, it was also not a bad year. Here, I would like to highlight companies from hardware and software sector, which are Ajax and Aeroslate, who raised investments from Horizon Capital, and also Dragon Capital and Ventures Capital VC fund became the minority shareholders of Cyclum.
Yeah, and here I would like to talk a little bit about the news section. The news section is about top deals of companies with R&D in Ukraine. The reason we are talking about it is that because on many deals we see companies having development in Ukraine. In our other reports in Deloitte, which we are doing on BPOs, we see that Ukraine has more than 100 research and development centers with the different focus areas. And to the extent we are aware, this is the place where Ukraine make quite a good footprint. And especially these times, we see that Ukraine is successful when unpredictable situation happened. Everyone's stuck at home, and talking to R&D centers, to various companies providing coding services, we see that they continue working despite the circumstance, unlike some other countries where people cannot work and code outside office. So we strongly believe that Ukraine is very well positioned overall to provide R&D support, and especially today, it could be quite a good time to invest in this area, even though the time is a turbulent, because many people who were doing development outside Ukraine now moved backwards because of the quarantine, and probably they might be willing to stay in the country. So this is the good area of potential collaboration with Ukraine, and this is where Ukraine can be the destination for the investment, for the big players. I just don't want to talk about every point here because it will take time, and you will be able to see it in the report. Let's shift to the next slide, which is also the new slide, the new area. During COVID-19 turbulence times, we found out that we have a number of startups that support the healthcare, from free medicine delivery to diagnostics, doing various supports. Someone provides funds, some provides services, some of those provides various engineering developments and makes it public so that producers in other countries can take those drawings as a basics for production of various systems supporting people suffering from COVID-19. I also will not talk about it in details. The details are in the report, and we will also make another webinar about what's happening in Ukrainian field around COVID-19 with more detailed dive into this area. This will probably happen on 29th of April, on the right?
Yeah.
So shall we go to the next very interesting topic then?
Yeah, and the topic is really interesting. It's also one of the new things that we included in this report. Some of you may know I'm the ambassador of Ukrainian women and European women in venture capital. This is the community which we founded like a couple of years ago, and to which every woman who is related to the sector is very welcome. We decided to count how many founders, female founders, did Ukrainian startups who fundraised in 2019 have. And actually the numbers are pretty good because in the world, according to the global statistics, we checked it on Crunchbase, for example, about 90% of founders are represented by female founders or the mixed teams, like women and men and so on. In Ukraine, this number is almost 26%, which is quite good, but the sky is the limit, I hope that this number will just increase and increase. And the thing is not about bringing women at all positions and occupy everything, but the thing is about having some balance, because especially in crisis situation like nowadays, it is important to have the different view on the things, on the problems which are appearing in the everyday life of the startup as well. The other interesting, so on the slides you will check later in the presentation or now, the distribution of female founders in different sectors. And the other interesting fact is that almost the half of the female founded or female co-founded teams received funding on the seed stage. That means that that's really the recent trend, and the situation is changing. And well, I think now will be the long-awaited moment. You can take your phones, you can check your screens and scan the QR code, which you see here. Also in the chat, in the Zoom, and in the comments on Facebook, the link to SlideShare, where you can look through and you can go through the report later after our panel discussion. and use the way to enjoy the overview, which is the most convenient for you. So now we will shift to the panel discussion. And I'm inviting Mike Burke, and he will represent our honorary speakers.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you so much for inviting me today. My name's Mike Burek. I am the president of M. Burek Associates. I'm also a podcaster and business writer. I write on Ukraine Digital News and also on Tech Ukraine about the tech startup business in Ukraine. So today I want to introduce the two panelists, Roman Nikitov, who is a co-head of venture and tech investments at ICU, where he leads seed and Series A round investments into innovative companies in Central and Eastern Europe with a focus on Ukraine. And he joined ICU in 2014 as a senior investment banker, and he has spent many years, actually 15 years, in investment banking. And our second panelist is Yoram Wijngaarde, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Dealroom.co. Dealroom.co is Europe's largest startup and venture capital database, providing rich data analysis and research on tech companies and tracking and offering tracks and benchmarks on over 500,000 tech companies worldwide. So welcome to both of you today.
Good evening or good morning, everyone.
Hi, good evening, morning, afternoon.
Yoram, we don't see you. If you want to turn on your video, it would be great.
No, you can see me. I am this one.
I see you now. Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to start off with just reviewing some of the highlights that Olga and Vladimir just presented to us, and then ask our panelists their thoughts on them. So as I read through the report, I noticed that the total value of venture capital deals in 2019 was almost $510 million versus $336.9 million in 2018, while the number of the deals was 111 versus 115 in the previous year. So, for example, Roman, why do you think the value of the deals went up, but the number of deals went down? Any thoughts on that?
Well, basically, last year, there are two outliers. There are two big investments that have attracted capital at the growth stage. So this number could even be more skewed towards a bigger pool of capital that was attracted by one company. So that is a simple answer to that. The number of deal is a great number representing the activity of the market, and it tells us that it's relatively on the same level as in 2018.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can add to that, so the number of deals being lower in the most recent year is something that we see also in other countries, and that has also to do with the reporting lag. So what often happens is that the smaller rounds get reported with a bit of a delay. Some only report their seed round, for example, once they've reached Series A. So I think that, aside from what Roman mentioned, also plays a role.
So for my next question, the number of angel investments in 2019, the value of them increased to $6.1 million versus 0.9 in 2018. And the number of deals went up to 21 from 7. What do you think was driving these numbers? And maybe we can start off with Yoram this time.
I actually don't have an answer to that, so it would
Okay.
be better to ask Roman.
Fair enough. Roman.
Well, what we see happening in the market is that Ukrainian ecosystem, the venture capital ecosystem, is getting more and more organized, even though this is still, to my mind, is in its infantile stage. But at the same time, the people that have capital and have access to capital, they get a little bit more organized, and there are pools of angel capital allocated around these people. There are companies that have clubs getting angels organized. And let's not forget that a simple angel, straightforward, direct investment would probably not end up in a UVCA report, just because they wouldn't even think of reporting that, and UVCA might not even know about it. So what we see here is a direct reflection of those angels that are investing through pools and are organized. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign, especially for those companies that are attracting pre-seed, very early capital, that the local investor, or even, in some cases, angel investors are organized not only locally, but they're getting more and more active.
So for my next question, the overall average deal size in 2019 increased 78% from 2018 to almost 6 million. Any thoughts on that? Why the deal size grew so rapidly?
Yoram, you want to take it?
Sure. I think that Roman answered it to a large degree in the beginning. So it was really driven by a handful of large deals. And that's the thing always with venture capital statistics, is that they are really driven by a few large deals, and you see that in every country. And that's the kind of the nature of the beast. So it's a market that's driven by power laws. So a few companies become big, and once they become big, they become very, very big. And you see now in the last few years that has started to happen in Ukraine. So you see these kind of super successful startups suddenly starting to break through, and something like that can only happen after an ecosystem is for more than 10 years in development. You need to foster the right talent. You need to have founders in your ecosystem that have this ambition to build really big companies. So I think that's the driver behind that.
And in 2019, almost 86% of the investment was at the growth stage, as opposed to pre-seed or seed. Why do you think that was so? It seems like the trend is away from pre-seed and seed stage investment.
Yeah, that's also that's all part of the bigger trend, I think, where you see the bigger startups starting to emerge, and that will become a larger part of the overall mix. So growth stage and later stage VC will become a larger part of the overall mix, and that trend hopefully continues. If you compare Ukraine with other countries in Europe or even with the US, there's even more to come, actually. So for example, in the US or in the UK, percentage-wise, more rounds are bigger. And so what you see is that the more an ecosystem matures, the more the average round size goes up, and the more the weight comes towards those growth stage rounds.
Michael, there is also another way to look at into that. I mean, we see on page 9 of the report that the number of deals actually in a pre-seed and seed level have grown. So that means basically that just the volume of a single deal at the early stage is smaller. That partially is also a contribution of the angel community being more active. So I don't see too much, concern into that. As soon as long as number of deals at the pre-seed level is growing, even if the tickets might be smaller comparing, year to year, we're building up, we're going up.
So basically what you're suggesting then is that the angel investors are really investing at the pre-seed and seed stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other interesting fact that I saw was that with the large companies, GitLab, Grammarly, People AI, and Gigi.ng, the bulk of the investment actually came from the US. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that Yoram, unless you want to take it.
You go first.
Okay. Well, the way, I guess, we just have to step back here. The way the flow of capital works, at least an example of Ukrainian, I know it's applicable to other countries as well, but any companies that are developing initially, they're starting with a pre-seed where they attract, very small capital, whether their own or from friends, family, from angels. It's they're moving to seed and they're attracting, more of the angel investments. And probably the first time they ever step into sort of quasi or even institutional investor base is late seed or round A already. It's exactly where ICU Ventures are actually targeting our investments. And at this point of time, but up until this point of time, mostly the capital that is supporting a local startup comes from a local community, whether it's inner circle of your own money, then a bigger circle of your friends, your family, your friends, then the angels that surround you, then VCs that surround you. But then when the company grows, and especially when the company steps outside of the geography and targets the global market, and the offices are opened elsewhere, closer to the ultimate client or a bigger pool of capital. In our example with Ukraine and with most of the rest of the world, it is a natural choice of US. That means that the bigger the company becomes, the bigger pool of capital it attracts, and the more international it becomes. So it is a natural it's a natural kind of development into a bigger pool of capital, which is located outside of Ukraine, even outside of Europe.
Yeah, I would like to add something to that, because I thought it's an interesting phenomenon and question, because yeah, it is normal that you start getting funding locally, and then as you go bigger, you get international investors on board. But they could have gone also to German or UK investors, for example. But it seems to be more US investors. So they kind of skipped the Western Europe and went straight to Silicon Valley. And I'm wondering if that might be because Ukraine was not sufficiently on the radar of some UK funds, and therefore these founders had made their own choice where they wanted to raise money, and they decided to go straight to Silicon Valley. But I noticed that lately, like German and UK VCs, which are top VCs globally, have been started to become more proactive in scouting new opportunities in Ukraine.
Well, the thing is that you're right, Yoram. I mean, you just choose your swamp to be a hero in that, right? And then you have a choice to move outside of your country and then attract, 100 times bigger pool of capital or 10 times bigger pool of capital. You probably make a natural choice of just like trying it out where there is more capital immediately, because every company making such a transitional decision as to what is the next market for us to develop has to basically install themselves and enroll in a country where they are trying to set up. So obviously, Germany, UK, any other European ecosystems might sound like a natural choice for Ukraine being part of Europe, but still, you're also right that for investor base, and at least I could confirm it from those people that I talked to in Germany in the conferences that I visited, they basically, up until recently, haven't really looked outside of Germany or European Union at best, but most of them are like very, very Germany focused. And in the UK, UK is naturally, a much smaller market than US in terms of VC. There's also a very different mentality to that. While everyone is a foreigner in the US, and you come and a new kid in the ground that is not, does not raise eyebrows. In the UK, the mentality is slightly different, and it is more difficult for Ukrainians, as simple as that, also to get a UK visa. I mean, it has been so far much simpler to get a 5-year or even 10-year visa to the US than to the UK. Now with the Brexit, I'm sure things are going to change, and Ukrainians will have more chances. I mean, one of our offices are actually in the UK, and we try to tap into the UK ecosystem as well. And what we see is that slowly people are putting Ukrainian engineers, Ukrainian projects on their radars, but it takes time and it takes work. Ukraine was out of their scope for quite a long time, and it's been it's not a one-day task to change a habit. And it depends on all of us, local market participants, to basically go on and market Ukraine as a country, projects out of Ukraine, ourselves, and to make sure that we as local venture investors make sense to the bigger pool of investors, because it is our job to bring our companies from a portfolio to the next bigger predator, to make sure that we do well.
Next, in the section "Who Invests in Ukraine?", it was indicated that there were only 8 active major investors in Ukraine in 2019. Do you think this is a normal situation for a market the size of Ukraine? And if not, what else has to happen in order for the number of major investors to increase? Roman, any thoughts?
I could take that. As I mentioned before, I think Ukrainian venture capital ecosystem is still very, very immature. At the same time, the good thing about it is that there are 8 active investors in Ukraine, because if you would actually, in a contrast, compare it to the situation 5 or more years ago, there would be less. So what that means is that there are venture funds, venture capital funds, venture investors are basically focusing themselves on this market segment, and marketing themselves as venture investors, refining their own skill, making their own mistakes. We're part of that gang. We have been investing just merely more than 2 years since we started, diversifying into venture capital world. We've been fascinated at the speed and the developments that are happening. We would, at the same time, wish the market to be more developed, not only from a venture capital investors' point of view, because I think Ukraine is rich on capital, regardless of what whoever thinks. It's just that the sources of capital that Ukrainian rich people have been making up until recently, at least, they're not really, sort of in many cases KYC-able for the rest of the world. That means that these pools of capital are either hidden somewhere or parked or not being used. And the world is changing to bigger and more transparency. So we understand that it is becoming more and more difficult to invest for anybody who doesn't have, explicit sources of capital. That means that there is capital that is hidden in Ukraine, which is still elsewhere, which is still to come to terms with the rest of the world, but it's coming, and we will see the number of organized venture capital investors and other type of investors, growing despite any, I don't know, lockup or anything that is happening. Maybe it's even going to fast forward the whole process because there is no other way. I mean, we just have to adjust to the rules of the world, and that's what Ukraine have been doing.
Yoram, what's your experience with the EU markets in this respect?
Yeah, I think there are more investors active in EU markets generally, but I think it's going to change quickly. And I think the next year's edition of this report, you're going to see a lot more big name investors who are active in Ukraine, and generally that should be a good thing, even despite everything that's going on now in the world. What I'm hearing is that people are now more interested also in taking a flight to the country to talk with founders and learn more about what's going on.
So when Olga was presenting some of her results in Trends in VC 2019, she indicated that hardware startups in Ukraine have the highest percentage of at least one woman founder, whereas software startups only have about 14%. Any thoughts on that? Why there are fewer women founders in the software arena versus the hardware arena?
Anything I say is going to be used against me at this point, so I will hand it to Yoram.
Okay. Now I really don't have an explanation for that, but it is a really interesting statistic. I mean, I know that like traditionally this has been a very male-dominated industry across the world, in the whole world. Ukraine has been a really strong player in building software for a long time. Maybe it's just a theory that creating a hardware startup is more something new, and therefore it is a bit more has also a more modern pool of people that are getting into this.
In terms of the outlook for 2020, when this report was put together, the expectation was 83% of those responding of current investors were expecting new private equity or venture capital funds to emerge in Ukraine in 2020. Given what's happened with the coronavirus lockdown this year, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that once we get over the lockdown period, that venture capital and private equity are going to come back? Or do you think there's going to be a slowdown period for 2020?
I'll take that. I mean, Michael, with all these numbers being analyzed, we're talking about a handful of investors, organized investors here. So appearance of next private equity investor in a game will change the numbers significantly. Ukraine has not been really enjoying private equity investor attention previously. We just have a few private equity investors in the country being active without calling the names here. You know, nothing changed with lockup period for Ukraine. Nothing changed. We have been in a lockup for the last 20 years. Hopefully, you know, now the world feels the same in a way, and we're just becoming no different to the rest of the gang. And it is, as I said, it is our job to put ourselves on the map and to make sure that private equity, you know, infrastructural or quasi-government institutions from European Union are finally get a good read on a association agreement with Ukraine, that Ukraine has become eligible to European International Investment Bank funding and other institutions of the type, which when I initially, you know, we signed the agreement and I was so excited, you know, and reached the head of EIB and said, hey, you know, Ukraine is now eligible. You told me last year, you know, you're not investing. And I said, well, no, I haven't heard about that. You know, it's okay to have a law, but, you know, it just needs to be brought down to different levels to be executed. We're still, but today EIB is financing infrastructural, you know, private equity 5 years later. I mean, you have private equity stories, so that takes time. It's going to take time for private equity firms investing in European countries, even Eastern Europe, you know, up until the border with Poland or Romania, you know, to include Ukraine first mentally into their mandate. And then secondly, you know, the venture capital investors are actually more agile and they look elsewhere. They are more flexible on where the team comes from. They're registered in Delaware most likely anyway, you know, so that's been happening. How much of that is in the record and in the statistics and in the report remains to be seen. It will continue developing anyway because life is going on.
Yoram, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that the companies that have emerged out of Ukraine are, first of all, really resilient, and I think that matters a lot to the whole ecosystem. So, you know, it really helps that none of these companies that we've been talking about, like GitLab, Grammarly, are in the travel space, for example. So they're not going to collapse. I think they're very resilient in this crisis, and that really helps. Yeah, as I think as Roman said, so far the ecosystem is small enough for people to also know each other, and hopefully there's some, let's say, camaraderie to help each other out. But after a few months, yeah, things hopefully come back somewhat to normal. And what you see overall in the world is that technology is doing better than other sectors. Yeah, with the exception of things like mobility and travel, but that's like where Ukraine is strong in more in deep tech and AI and like writing complex software. Those are, yeah, I think that there has never been a better time than now actually to launch those kind of startups, including in Ukraine.
So turning our discussion, and we're going to be wrapping up soon, to the overall situation with Ukrainian tech entrepreneurs. Do you think they're becoming more sophisticated in their business skills and their ability to adapt to global markets?
Michael, I got the first job in 1996, and my first employer was an American citizen, semi-retired former kind of PepsiCo guy, and he said, "I'm not hiring anybody." Whatever it was, 13. And I said, why? He said, because they have this Soviet mentality and I cannot rework them. So what means that it takes a generation probably to grow and to get completely different mindset, first of all, before the skill comes in, to be more entrepreneurial, to be more socially active in terms of horizontal links between the worlds, the countries, to develop. There are specific skills that Ukrainian background educational system is very strong about, specifically the mathematical school, the engineering. That skill Ukraine has luckily in abundance, and is offering the world, as I said, as a first level of its development. At its first level of its development, the way I look at it, is offering sort of brains on outsource, meaning those outsourcing companies that are just developing some technical stuff for other companies. Then the second level of development is basically when there are acquisitions happening, when the bigger companies are hiring more and more in Ukraine. They basically move their R&D departments in Ukraine, so that starts to link Ukraine deeper into the global technological process. And then third level of development that we expect is that people are now, and what we see now is that those ambitious young entrepreneurs that have built good outsourcing companies, they're now developing the product companies. And at the time when you start the product company, you start facing absolutely different challenges, and despite the fact that you are technologically or technically very skilled, you would need some other skills which Ukrainian school, kind of generalistic school, is generally missing. And I mean the skills related to marketing, sales, promotion, kind of those soft skills that are in the Western schools have been, at least what we see in abundance, and in some markets actually have been prevailing over technical expertise, which is another side of the problem. So the way I see the world developing at this stage for Ukraine is that we would probably for some time still need those expatriates that could take some of the roles for the Ukrainian startups. That would be more useful than to basically wait until the 13-year-old kid grows up with a new mindset and soft skill, as a shortcut. And basically use those skills that are more developed in Western schools, combine them with those that are more developed in our schools to get the best benefit. And in the meantime, the Ukrainian entrepreneurs are going to grow and learn and develop themselves.
Yoram, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm an outsider to the Ukraine ecosystem, so I cannot say it so good as Roman did. But what I can see from the outside, yeah, what you need is a few big successes, and that results in positive spin-off. So if you look at Berlin, for example, which is the #2 tech ecosystem in Europe. That happened because in the end, because 3 brothers started a copy of eBay, and that became a big company. Then they started a couple of other companies, and then that created like a whole generation of experienced operators and people who have seen others do it, and that get the confidence to then also do it. And that's what you need. So I guess if the regulation doesn't get in the way, if politics don't get in the way, then the next generation is going to be able to do beautiful things.
Roman, I have a question specifically for you. What is the strategy of ICU Ventures for 2020? What kind of companies are you looking at possibly investing in?
Our strategy pretty much remains unchanged in a way that we have been looking for companies that have global ambition, but what we like to say, an Eastern European DNA. Obviously, with one of our offices being in Kiev, we have a big pipeline of Ukrainian companies, but we're also looking at the companies that come from elsewhere in Eastern Europe. We do look for those entrepreneurs that can get and inspire the team around them. We're looking for companies that have innovative component and ambitious enough to move to different markets. At this point of time, the only thing that changes is that we're hoping to get those good companies cheaper.
Yoram, can you talk to the audience a little bit about Deal Room? I know very recently you participated in a collaboration with a consortium of Ukrainian companies, including UVCA, to set up a specific section of the database for Ukrainian startups. So would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks. I would love to. Yeah, so together with UVCA and a lot of other partners, I would say almost all the key players of the Ukraine ecosystem, we've launched a database, and it's free and it's public, and it's on ukraine.dealroom.co. And I would recommend everyone to start using it. To either find out about what's going on, get inspired, find investors, and you can also chat with us directly if you have any questions, or if you want to contribute, or if you want to co-create something with us to the benefit of everyone. Then feel free to reach out.
Thanks for that information. At this point, I'd like to open it up to questions and answers from the audience. And right now we have our first question from Mads Jonk Jorgensen, who says, how about where European investors and entrepreneurs want to get into Ukrainian startup scene to access talent? What's your recommended approach here? Yoram, maybe you could comment on that.
Or did Olga want to answer this?
Did you want to say something about it?
I just like mentioned that they can come to UVCA and we will introduce to the most active investors.
Together with Deloitte. Actually, my suggestion would be to start definitely looking into the reports and information that is available. It's available from UVCA, from us, from public sources. And once you are pretty clear on what you are willing to achieve, then definitely there are a lot of players who will be more than happy to assist you in this, in whatever scenario you are looking into Ukraine.
Thanks.
If I may chip in, I would just say that obviously it's a post lockup period advice, but just come over. I mean, and Olga is right. UVCA, Ukrainian Venture Capital Association, is collecting data all the time on activities. They're very instrumental in linking people. The investor base, including us, we're also taking and trying to play a very active role in linking and building bridges between Ukraine and the rest of the world, and Deal Room, by the way, is one of the ways to basically get a feel of the companies coming from Ukraine as well. This is now a remote recommendation. You can actually look into that. It's being uploaded every day from what I see. So this is one of the ways to basically put Ukraine into the into the radar screens of the rest of the world as well, because people can access and see even without traveling.
We have another question from Hiroshi Shibata. And the question is, what do Ukrainian startups view regarding the Japanese market? And I guess that question is the Japanese market on the radar of Ukrainian startups? Anyone care to comment on that?
I don't have a specific answer to Japanese market from a point of view of a startup. Unfortunately, we don't have a startup at this panel, and speaking on behalf of startups is difficult. At the same time, I may assume that Japanese market is as interesting to Ukrainian startups developing their product offerings as any other market that Ukrainian that startups coming from Ukraine or elsewhere are targeting. So if the Ukrainian market is small enough for any Ukrainian startup targeting global. There's if we see the Ukrainian startup not trying to conquer the world, we don't think this is a proper startup anymore. So Japanese market included.
May I add? Sorry for.
Go ahead, Olga, jump in.
Yeah, I hope I will not interrupt, but I'll try to keep short. For example, we are organizing the Ukrainian delegation, the Ukrainian pavilion at Consumer Electronics Show. We choose the best with our investors. They choose the best hardware companies out of Ukraine, and many of the products they have Japanese market as one of the target because. Some of them are like, I don't know, like for decorations or like toys or like some interesting devices, which are having a great success, at least at the conferences at this stage, in Japan in particular. So you can also check one of those companies. It's also available like on website or somewhere. So that can be of interest and defeat. Thank you.
And our next question from Bas Gotska from the Netherlands, who runs a Dutch-Ukrainian VC ICU Ventures here, specializing in pre-seed and seed stage investments in Ukraine and the CIS. The question is, if you've heard of any other Western seed funds with boots on the ground in Ukraine.
Western seed funds with foots in Ukraine. Well, what we see is happening is that there are a lot of Polish funds that are basically and funds coming from places like Baltic funds that are basically searching and looking through the investment projects coming from Ukraine, because they come from the markets where basically there is a deficit of projects in contrast with Ukraine, where there's a deficit of capital. In the markets, so we see that. Foods in Ukraine, I mean, Europe is generally a small place. It's not that you have to open an office, to have a full foot. We see people, looking into Ukrainian projects from Sweden included, from Finland, as I mentioned, from Poland, from Germany, from other places, from UK, obviously. So we see a lot of people, and we talk to a lot of people that are looking into Ukrainian companies. And sometimes we talk to US investors where we're surprised to see in their portfolios the Ukrainian startups, and which we wouldn't expect. Obviously, this is not as systematic as you might kind of assume by the question of having a foot, but still, this is happening.
Okay, and I'm going to go through one final question from Max. And he's curious about your views, both of you, on technology companies in e-travel and the IoT sector. And what do you think the investment outlook is for these sectors relative to Ukraine from 2020 through 2021?
Anybody want to take it, or should I just go on?
Yeah, I can take it. I mean, IoT and e-travel. So IoT really is, yeah, there have been a lot of investment that has disappointed. But on the other hand, you're starting to see also some interesting developments, for example, with application in the insurance market. So kind of tracking people's health in real time. That could be really groundbreaking for insurance, but also for healthcare and predicting disease, for example. And that's the outlook for that particular area of IoT is really good. At the moment is not so good, and it's not clear how if travel, you know, it will bounce back, but if it's like going to be like a V-shaped recovery or L-shaped or whatever, that the outlook right now is not very good.
Roman, any final thoughts?
Well, you know, we are at the stage when there is a definite change of paradigm for the whole world. And it seems that the past, the historical trends are one more time are not going to be that relevant anymore to predict future. From that perspective, all we can do at this point is to make some assumptions. And obviously, it is safe to assume that you know, the developments and the projects in those areas that are more virtual and have less of a social contact are going to be developing. At the same time, my view is that I'm a big believer in just deep technology teams that even though could probably at some time be going after the following the money, so to say, or going after the market and trying to find a niche and an opportunity. When the consumer preferences are changing, the opportunity and niches are going to be exploding in other areas, and those companies with deep technology skills and organized teams are going to be very fast to adjust to new asks, and I'm sure they will be just following those trends very rapidly. And here I see a big advantage finally for Ukraine being at the kind of infantile stage of its development in terms of you know, where we're going, because at this point of time it is all up to us how we use this this crisis situation where the whole world is changing, and it is up to us to offer the world and to be swift enough to be offering something that new reality is going to ask for. Online travel might be one of that. IoT is probably something that has moved to the area of security aspects, because you know the IoT information, the information from a sensors that is collected. You know, the world is more worried about where this information is located, collected, stored, how it's transferred, and what is happening and who is going to misuse it, rather than existence or investments in the IoT sphere as well. Obviously, we're all you know, are now IoT has become probably to some extent a commodity by now, which is probably moving outside of kind of primary venture focus, but moving more to the growth stage kind of focus funds, I would assume.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, Roman and Yoram, for this lively discussion today. Olga, with that, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you, Yoram. It was a very insightful discussion. Well, I guess this is the time for final words. Thank you for joining us. We will distribute the link to report and the broadcast with the final press release. So you are very welcome to share and to inspire other people to innovate in Ukraine and to invest in the companies out of our region. In case we or the participants of our webinar can help in any way, just let us know. So thank you from me, and keep innovating. Vladimir, maybe you have something to say as the final words.
Just a second. So thanks everyone for listening to us. Thanks to the participants. And one thing which I would like to mention, Roman said that there is different impression of Ukraine outside the country. And my strong belief is that Ukraine is unknown. Unknown is often scary. And I hope that this presentation and this report put another building block into understanding of what's going on here. And as Olga, you said, and other participants said, we would really appreciate if you can go out and tell some good, real words and good words about Ukraine, about the potential that we have here, and about opportunities that could be found here on that market. So this is what I wanted to say, and thanks Olga for inviting us and being part of this team.
Thank you. Okay, so have a good day and have a good evening. Thank you once again for this discussion and for devoting your time, not only for being with us, but for checking with report and preparing for this day. Have a good day. Thank you.
Stay healthy, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.